Welcome to episode 172 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today I'm talking with Adam Nemer. He's a former healthcare executive whose life changed dramatically after years of silently struggling with depression, anxiety, and unresolved trauma following the death of his parents, especially after he discovered his father's suicide. For nearly 2 decades, Adam built a successful career while privately battling severe mental health challenges that affected every aspect of his life. But after finally getting help, he discovered a new mission to help organizations and individuals to better understand mental health and eliminate the stigma surrounding it. In this episode, Adam shares a deeply personal story with lessons that can benefit anyone, especially people over 50 who may still carry the old belief that emotions should be hidden and struggles handled alone. First, Adam explains why so many people delay getting help for mental health challenges and how stigma keeps millions suffering in silence. Second, he talks about the connection between mental health and physical health, including how his untreated emotional pain contributed to years of severe Crohn's disease flare-ups and hospitalizations. Third, Adam shares practical ways to recognize when friends, coworkers, or loved ones may be struggling and how simple conversations can genuinely save lives. Finally, we discuss loneliness, purpose, and why finding meaningful ways to help other people often becomes one of the most powerful sources of fulfillment later in life. Adam's story is honest, emotional, and ultimately hopeful. I think you'll walk away from this conversation with a different perspective about mental health, aging, and the importance of human connection. To tell us his story, please welcome Adam Nemer to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Adam. I really appreciate it. You've had quite a life, that's for sure. And you kept it hidden from a lot of other people for many years until a good friend came out and said, you need help. Tell us a little bit about that.
I kept it hidden from myself, right? I struggled with my severe mental illness for 20 years. When I was a younger fella and 29 and getting groomed to run my family business, I found my dad after he died of suicide. And it wasn't until 20 years later when a leader at my organization recognized that I might be struggling and encouraged me to get some help.
Oh, that would be sad to do in the first place, and then to carry that burden for a long time. And it kind of speaks to what we hear a lot, is that when somebody dies, you don't ever mention it to them because it might make them upset, when in fact they really need to talk about it. And it sounds like you needed to talk about that situation, but who do you open up to that? Who would care enough to care about you?
It's even more than that. We haven't been taught that we should talk with people about our feelings and our emotions. At work, we all have physical health literacy in our toolboxes, but we don't have mental health literacy in our toolboxes. Here's a stat for you. First, 20% of Americans every year experience a clinically diagnosable mental illness. Less than half get help. And the average time period from the onset of symptoms to getting help is almost 11 years.
Wow.
The remarkable stat is the next one, that 80% of the people who don't get help for mental illness say the reason they don't get help is because of stigma. We're just worried what other people are going to think. Can you imagine if 20% of us every year got cancer, but less than half of us got help because we thought other people would think that we're weak? You asked earlier, I kept it hidden. I struggled with severe mental illness for 17 years. And in the back of my head, I knew I had a problem, but I locked that away in a little box because I had no idea that for 18 years, I was using all of my strength and resilience as a human being to keep my mental health struggles hidden from everybody around me, even me, right? I was hiding it from myself too.
Okay.
And subconsciously, it's like in my brain, there was this little locked box in it. And inside of it was, holy crap, you doofus. You found your dad's suicide. You found your mom after she died. They both struggled with severe substance use, blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, doofus, you need to go get help. You're screwed. When that would leak from my subconscious to my conscious would say, oh my God, I'm so screwed. I can't be an executive of a $4 billion company if I strict boxes. I can't do anything. And so then my conscious mind would lock that story of my past back up in this box that I think of as my subconscious box in the back of my head that I just kept locked, that like I said a moment ago, I was using my strength and resilience as a human to keep my thoughts away from it. And so I wasn't knowingly hiding it. I didn't keep it hidden. I didn't know what I was doing. I was so paralyzed by the stigma of what is a clinically diagnosable and recoverable illness.
And when you're talking mental illness, that covers a broad spectrum of problems, doesn't it? Can you talk about what that range would be? Because I think when everybody thinks of mental illness, they are thinking of the people who are muttering to themselves while walking down the street.
There are so many myths associated with that fuel the stigmas in our society. Some of the myths are, man, people that have mental disease are dangerous.
Yes.
In fact, they're more likely to be people with mental illness or more likely to be victims of abuse. What's another good myth? You shouldn't talk with people about suicide because it might give them the idea to do it. When in fact, all evidence is to the opposite. It's oftentimes the first time someone has approached them and they really want help. So when you think about that broad spectrum, there are 5% of people who are struggling with schizophrenia, bipolar, really heavy duty. I'm not a clinician, right? So I don't know how to talk about this and stuff on TV, right? I'm a CFO. So then there is the bulk of mental illness diagnoses in America, North America, across the world is run-of-the-mill depression and anxiety, PTSD, that sort of thing, substance use disorder. And so one of the things that I do when I work with companies and talk with audiences is talk about mental illness, just like physical illness. But let's talk about mental health, just like we talk about physical health, right? Or for that matter, let's talk about it like cardiac health. So we all experience cardiac health. Some of us are on one side of the continuum and we take care of ourselves and our heart care is great. Or maybe we don't take care of ourselves and we still have good health care, right? Some of us are on the other side of the continuum, and no matter what we do, we're really sick. We need to have our heart cracked open today. But we're all somewhere in this continuum every day. We've all experienced times in our life when where we needed to exercise more. And we all also can do things. You can find yourself in cardiac illness on this side of the continuum when, due to no fault of your own, something genetic happens. You don't know, right? But you can, and if you're not taking care of yourself and you end up over there, you can start taking care of yourself and doing self-care. And there are things that you can do to manage your health that we all do in society, getting, 30 minutes of cardio exercise a day or whatever that made up thing is. And it's the same thing with mental health. We are all on a mental health continuum all day long. Some of us are just doing great. Some of us need to help, immediately need to call the psych hotline. And we're all, through the course of the day, experiencing emotional waves come at us. And a lot of us are able to overcome them with just where they flow through of us. Some of us are really impacted by those events and need more help getting back over there. And so it's helping people understand that we've all experienced mental health and well-being. And ironically, the work to take care of it is very similar to what you do for your physical health.
You go see a doctor. That's right. Now, people in my age group, I'm 66, will remember when we were talking about mental health stigma, there was a vice presidential candidate who was forced to resign because he had gone to see a mental health specialist. And so I think people in my age group especially still carry that stigma. But is that becoming better? Is it easier for younger people to get the help that they need?
There is a significant generational gap. So I think about it as this isolation cycle of mental illness. The myths drive the stigmas, drive the shame, drive the silence, right? Depression isn't real is the myth, drives the stigma. People with depression are just weak. And so people with depression are just weak, drive the feelings of shame. Oh my God, I feel depressed. I must be a weak person. So we stay silent, right? And so as I do work and as Simple Mental Health does work with organizations, what we find is that now first, Greg, there are not a lot of baby boomers left in the workplace. So we got baby boomers and then Gen Xers, right? We have a lot of stigma here. It's when I talk to those audiences about the facts, the stories, their eyes are popping wide open and they're leaning in and learning more than other people are because of just generations. Millennials and Gen Zers are far more open to the conversation and they are way more likely to be getting help. Now, that doesn't mean that all millennials and all Gen Zers are open to it and getting help. They aren't. It's a crisis in America. It just means more of them are than of our generation.
Correct.
And it's funny. I go to companies and you can look around the room and it's like the people like us are like leaning in, nodding their heads. And the young folk are leaning back with their arms crossed. And why are you coming and telling me this?
Exactly. But you had mentioned that you got the help that you wanted because one of your coworkers saw that you were struggling and made that decision to talk to you about it and push you in the direction or nudge you in the direction of seeking assistance through the employee assistance program at your company. Yeah. What are some things that managers can look for? And beyond managers, what can we look for in our friends that may say that they are struggling with a mental health issue?
It's an interesting question. What are the signs and symptoms that someone might be struggling with their mental well-being? Right. So there's actually an internationally recognized course like CPR called Mental Health First Aid. It's in 120 countries around the world. When it could train 4 million Americans in mental health first aid. It's a day-long class. When she was First Lady, Michelle Obama was trained in mental health first aid. And what's interesting about mental health first aid, it's basically, and I'm going to oversimplify it, but it's not that complicated. It's learning a class that teaches you the signs and symptoms that someone might be struggling, how to approach them in a safe, thoughtful, caring, non-judgmental manner while providing hope and reassurance that recovery is possible, and knowing how to guide them to services in the community or provided by your company where they can go get help. Those are the core tenets of what you learn in this class. And there's other classes. There's lots of there's lots of places you can go for this sort of information, but it's all in that same, how do you notice? How do you approach? How do you guide? It's like first aid, right? I notice somebody's clutching their heart. I engage with them. Are you okay? No, my heart's out. So what do? I call 911. It's the same damn thing, right? So now what's really cool when you take a mental health first aid class or when you do work with us in companies, what you learn is that we all already know the signs and symptoms that someone's going to be struggling with their mental health.
They're breathing.
Already know. What the class does is it teaches you to connect the dots between these behaviors we're seeing all day and, oh my gosh, someone could have a clinically diagnosable and treatable illness that they're really hurting from. And it's just this natural thing. And I'll give you an example. You've never taken this class, right?
I have not.
Okay. What do you think is one sign or symptom that someone might be struggling with their mental well-being?
They are completely closed off to everybody.
Another sign and symptom that someone at work might be struggling with their mental well-being.
Their demeanor has changed, and they used to be pleasant, but now they are very short.
Change in behavior. They do a lot of fight or flight behavior. What's another one?
Oh, my goodness.
Go on. Give me one more. You can do it, Greg.
Let's see. They've already isolated. They've changed their behavior. They are just not willing to follow up on the things that they were going to be doing.
Their productivity. They have a presenteeism issue. That's right. Okay, so you just, like the number one is noticing the change in behavior, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, this was my biggest one. I couldn't control my emotions. I was usually calm and facilitative, but sometimes I could lean in and rip your nose. I could be a son of a bitch. And sometimes I could be completely unencumbered, right? Change in performance at work. Higher absenteeism when you're not used to it.
Yes.
Perhaps coming in smelling of alcohol from the night before. Maybe saying they haven't been sleeping well. Oh, here's a good one. This was me. So I found my dad when he died of suicide when I was 29. And then for the next 17 years, as I grew my executive career, I got worse and worse. And 17 years in, I was one freaking hot mess, right? But I was still wearing a suit and tie to work. So I hit to every checkbox of mental illness, but no one said anything. Then I found my mom after she died. I was doing a welfare check on her, and she had been struggling with her mental health and substance use. And that after 17 years of all that severe mental illness that it's getting worse and worse and I hadn't taken care of, that put me into a state of complete near emotional collapse. By then I'd been promoted. I wasn't the CFO of our care system in the Northwest. I was running Kaiser's health plan operations. And so here's the thing. I started the next 3 weeks. I started wearing Levi's to work, t-shirts. I'm pretty sure I wore flip-flops. If I shaved, I missed patches on my face. And I was a mean as hell son of a bitch. So it's you. So what's interesting about those signs that is we know what they are. We are walking around all day long noticing, wow, Jack isn't on video today on the webinar. I wonder what's going on. Susie is always on time. Lately, she's been really late. Jack, all of a sudden, he's been late with his work. Javier hasn't been following up on stuff when he normally always does. She's always the calmest person, but lately can be really emotionally volatile with us. We are noticing that all day long. Taking a little class, working with us, what it does is just helps you connect those things to say, whoa, that's not just Julia having a bad day or something weird. It could be that Julia's struggling with her mental well-being and might need to get some help.
And that's a good point, because many times we would say, Julia, you need help, but never suggest where to go to get it or help them get to it, help them pay for it, or whatever the case might be that makes it possible for them to get the help. It's just, you need help. Thanks. That's helpful.
Yeah, no. And that's okay. So that gets the next part of what you do, right? So the first is, how do you notice the signs and symptoms? Then what the hell do you say? So once you notice that someone's struggling, okay, so there's a heart attack. They're having a heart attack. So how do you engage with them? We've been trained on this. Dude, you having a heart attack? That's how you engage with them, right? In mental health literacy, you want to help somebody after they're struggling. You want to engage with them in a safe, caring, thoughtful, and non-judgmental manner. We're asking questions and inquisitive, not problem solving. Because remember, why don't people get help? Because of the stigma, right? So when we engage with people what you learn in these courses, and we know this already, like, do you think it's a good idea to say to somebody, hey, think of all the good things you have in life to be happy about? that a nice thing to say? Judgmental, non-judgmental, is that a helpful thing?
No, not at all. Not when you're in that depression. Yes.
It's not acknowledging it. Right. So we learn how to talk with somebody. So now on the question, so to your point, I would never say to somebody, yo, dude, you got to see a therapist. But it is completely in a loving, when having a loving conversation with somebody, it's totally okay to say, have you ever considered seeing a therapist? Well, one is, have you considered seeing a therapist is a lovely question. And maybe they'll answer and see what they say. If you say, dude, you should see a therapist, that's just like
that's right.
Bomb of napalm dropped in their lap, and it's going to make it worse.
That's right. I agree wholeheartedly. You had mentioned the U.S. Surgeon General in 2023 said that loneliness can impact a person's mortality rate just as if they had smoked 15 cigarettes a day, which I found was astonishing, because loneliness is a big problem for people over 60, and it's getting worse. And so is loneliness considered a mental health issue?
Man, loneliness he wrote that and published it in the context of studies they were doing on mental health. Yes. So no, loneliness is a cause and effect of depression. This is a crisis. Okay. So the Surgeon General we have a new Surgeon General now, and I don't want to get into the wackiness of the New World Order, but let's talk about science. With our last Surgeon General, they identified workplace well-being as one of the top population health priorities in the United States. Being workplace well-being, how people experience the environment and culture at their work, is so important that making it better is one of the top 10 things we can do to impact the overall physical health of our nation, right? So that just blows my mind. Oh, by the way, on that list is not obesity, opiate addiction, diabetes, right? But well-being is. Now, here's the thing. When you struggle if you struggle with depression, studies have been shown people who struggle with depression have a 40% higher likelihood of having a cardiovascular event, having cardiovascular disease. You're also more likelihood of having a stroke, diabetes, asthma, osteoporosis, Alzheimer's disease. And a lot of it has to do with the connections between your mental and your physical health and the stuff that happens inside of you. Like for me, I have severe Crohn's disease. And before I knew that I had mental illness, I had 11 hospitalizations, 3 open belly surgeries. My mental illness came out in a horrible intestinal pain and agony. But another way that it comes out is people say, like, how could being depressed drive you to have these diseases? What happens is when you struggle with depression and anxiety for that matter, but for this example, perhaps for me, it was these more depression is it's hard to do your daily life tasks. You just wake up and I can't get out of bed. And it's not that you don't want to, it's you physically can, it just hurts too much. And I have had times where I ran out of medicine and I knew I was going to be running out for a week. And 7 days, 6 days, 5 days, 4 days, I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to do that today. I got to do that today. I got to do that today. And then I don't do anything that day because my mental health is such that I can't do anything in the day, right? I wasn't healthy for work. I didn't do anything, right? Then all of a sudden I'm out of my medicine and now it's a crisis. That is a really good example of that happens constantly. When you struggle with your mental health, it isolates you, right? And that isolation, you end up getting less exercise. You have less physical exercise. You eat poorer.
I agree. Yep. No,
those are examples. So it's like behavioral. There's chemical stuff in your body mine was my Crohn's. Then there's behavioral stuff.
Now, a lot of employers will say, you don't bring your personal problems to work. And you're here, you do your job and you go home. But many times we're taking our work problems home So there's got to be a balance in there. And how do people, or how should people respond in these kind of situations? Because work occupies the greatest portion of our day as a general rule, when you add in the commuting time and things like that. We need to have that ability to talk about things that are pressing in our personal lives as well, because
we are leading a new generation of Americans who have different attitudes and approaches to life. And so as leaders, leadership as a avocation is an evolving. It's one where you're constantly learning. And if you're in the old school and you say there's no room in business for feelings, leave your emotions at the door, you're not going to be successful down the road. And I'll give you an example. I talk about this place like I still work there, and helping us. I remember going about 12 years ago to, maybe 15 years ago. It was 15 years ago to an all-day training with 800 Kaiser leaders, and it was all about millennials. And the message of the day was, stop bitching about millennials. They're just different. Learn how to work with them. Listen, millennials want to work a little bit from home. Let them do it. They want different computers. Give it to them. The message of the day was, there's nothing you can freaking do about it. So be a leader and change it. You want to be a leader in this company in the future? Learn how to lead new people. Yeah, here's a stat for you. What is it? More than 50% of millennials and 75% of Gen Zers have left a job in part due to mental health reasons.
Wow.
And so, and 82% of Americans, even us folk, say that how a future employer will support their mental health will be a significant factor for them in choosing their next job.
Really? Right? Even for people over 50 who are still in the workforce?
Yeah, and they have the study broke down by age group. It was from the American Psychiatric or Psychological Association. I think the Psychological Association. And we leave your emotions at the door. There's no become mental health literate when you can't separate feelings from a person. Companies, right? So when we trained within 2 years, we became the top performing region in the company, the number one performing Medicare health plan in the Northwest, and in top 6% nationwide. For 2 years, the only thing that we did was I, as the senior leader, told everybody I'm struggling with severe mental illness, and we trained everybody in mental health first aid, and we just talked about it all the time. Next, 2 years later, highest performing region in the company and company in the region.
That's an impressive statistic right there. Absolutely.
It's the only thing we did differently. It's absurd. It's old school, old man bullshit.
That's right.
Oh yeah, I don't want to talk about my feelings, so no one should have to talk. But they don't know how to.
Exactly. That becomes, when I was a child, you cried, I'm going to give you something to cry about, kind of thing. We're told to bottle up our emotions. But then when you think of the people who are older than me, who were involved in the wars, Vietnam or World War II, they saw some horrible things, and they internalized all of that without an opportunity to express what they were processing as a result of that. When we talk about 1 in 5 employees every year struggling with a diagnosable mental illness, I think the number is probably 100% over 5 years will struggle with. Right. Exactly, because we all go through things. We have to deal with our parent who might be dying or who had died, etc., or a child who's struggling with something that's going on in their lives. And we're internalizing it. They're just everybody.
That's one of the top issues out there. One of the number one issues we hear from people at companies that we work with, when you interview them, what are you worrying about? What's impacting your well-being? The number one answer you hear is caregiver stress. It's because it is so hard when you're working all day and then your dad or your uncle or your great uncle or your grandma's end of life scenario. This out. It'll blow your mind. Dr. Mercedes for the country, one that's all the nation, is parental, being a parent in our society, that it is in so much that fixing it improve the overall health of a
You might be right about that, because if a parent is not getting the treatment that they need for their mental health, they're passing that on to their children, who are then taking it to school and acting out in school and causing problems that will result in lifelong issues for them as well. And they just seem to be passing it from generation to generation. I've seen it in my own family.
So here's a stat for you on that. And bring that to the workplace. 35% of Americans say that their workplace has a negative impact on their mental health.
I agree with that.
So that means, this is from SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers, last year's study. So that means that more than a third of Americans on any given day are leaving work in a more clinically ill manner than they walked in the door. It's like saying that I went to work and I left with a higher likelihood of lung cancer. So we, the American business leader, that attitude before, don't bring your emotions to work, that is driving a third of their employees to leave work in a more mentally ill manner than they walked in their door, and then go home. And mental illness, just like physical illness, is, what's the word I'm missing?
Contagious.
And you take it out on your family, friends, and then it's, business owners have a significant account. We can make a big difference here in society if we set like goals. Can you imagine what it might be like if business leaders said, in addition to all of their profitability goals and quality and service goals, say, we want to be profitable with great service and great quality. And I want to make sure that our people leave work every day as happy or happier than when they walked in the door.
They'd have the statistics like profitability as a result. It would be incredible. What was the return
on investment of getting? There's the, I was just going along life happy because I went to a lovely college. I lived abroad, lived in Prague, teaching English, lived in Israel for years, lived abroad for a couple of years. This wonderful job, working, getting groomed to run my family business. I dropped my whole life of working with my dad. And then all of a sudden I find him in suicide. And then I was 29, and I then went 20-ish years with such severe mental illness. So the first 5 years I was in shock. So I went to business school in those years, and I remember a few things from it, but I don't remember any moment from it. I don't really remember spending time with my now ex-wife before we got married or after. I think until my first son was born, I was in shock. I have no recollection of the moments of that life. And then I went into anxiety and depression that made it so that if you're listening to this and you're like, think about when you've had your worst day, like you lost your kid at the state fair and you can't find him and your heart's racing, right? Or you think you're going to get fired that day, or your grandpa just died. Think about the absolute worst day that you had. Honestly, I spent 20 years like that every single day. And I might go golfing with a buddy or go skiing with my kids, but the whole time it hurt me and I wasn't enjoying it. It was like having broken legs while doing these things. The ROI was, I'm now able to of life. I feel like I have a do-over. Like last night, I was sad for myself. I'm like, I had actually genuine happy times and I love my kids and I love my friends, and with the ROI just being experienced, it's the ROI. That's a piece of the ROI for me is I struggle with Crohn's disease inside. I was 16. I had a couple flares, and then I went like 13 years. Then after my dad died, in between the years between my dad died and I got help, I had 11 hospitalizations. Well, we were just painful. It hurt so damn bad. And then 6 months on prednisone, what my ex-wife calls the divorce drug. I had 3 open belly surgeries. Open up your stomach, cut out part of your intestine, sew it back up. I had Kaiser, I had some claims analysts do a study once. They probably spent more than $500,000 just taking care of my Crohn's disease. Since I started getting help for my mental health, I still have daily Crohn's pain and stuff, but I've had zero real hospitalizations or flares, not one friggin' one in 8 years, as long as I've gone ever since back in the day. And part of that is because my mental health is better. I'm eating better. I'm exercising better. That helps my Crohn's. So part of the ROI was my physical health improving. The found is the ROI is of a business. Like I shared, Kaiser was a really progressive company in training us to be facilitative, psychologically safe leaders. And I remember writing in my individual development plan, my IDP, a couple of years before I found out how sick I was. It was something like, I did this a couple of years in a row. I'm like, I'm really proud to be becoming a facilitative, psychological safe leader, but I don't like it how people experience me when I'm having a bad day, when I can be rude, relentless, a son of a bitch. Right. And they gave me like, I work for healthcare, and it's like, they're trying to help, but that I wasn't a well-educated leader, so I couldn't control. So by me getting healthy, I actually finally became the true naturally psychological facilitative leader that I dreamt that I could always be, because it just becomes natural to you. And then our teams, and then when I shared as I, the senior leader of 400 people, said, hey guys, I'm struggling with depression and anxiety, and then told everybody about it. And I'd be in a meeting, I'm like, guys, I'm having an anxiety attack, I got to leave. And they'd be like, you just hear that from our senior leader? So then they could start talking about it. It created this environment when the leader showed his vulnerability, then everybody else could. Then we normalized the topic.
Right.
So the ROI of me getting better was, as a leader, it just meant I normalized the topic at work, and it made our teams, like I said, highest performing in the company, in the region, and top 6% nationwide. So there was this ROI of the business. It just rock and rolled our business. There was it was really the reason. I guess I don't do this because of the ROI of the business. But I guess I think there's a lot of help. I used to be a CEO of $200 million a year, a couple hundred people's jobs, and RIF people, like six. Oh, now I get people. For me as a person, when people now share with me, whoa, hey, I got help because of what you said, or talked with a cousin of mine and they're getting help. And
you open the door for so many other people. And
I used to have to be a corporate executive. I don't want that anymore. Now I get to do this. And look, I found my calling.
Exactly. And
I've never worked harder in my life, never made this little money, but I've never been this happy.
There's a value in that's for sure. Then you talked about corporate executives coming to grips with this, but even parents, spouses, can come to grips with this and have a tremendous impact on their own families, their marriages, their friends, neighbors, other family members, etc. It just spreads across the whole gamut of relationships when you address the mental health problems that you're experiencing. It sounds like to me.
Let me blow your mind. So let's build on that for a second. Earlier, I said that 20% of Americans every year. It's actually 24% last year. So it's really 1 out of 4. So if you're listening to this conversation, think about how many times in your life over the last week, say, were you with 4 or more people? That means you likely, if you were, you're likely could be with someone who this year may have already, or could be now, or we are constantly, all day long, whether it's people we know, longtime friends, it could be the clerk at the grocery store who looks sad when she always looks happy or he always looks happy. These little 5-minute conversations that encouraging people to get help, noticing conversation.
Everybody can do. When we're talking over forward a different direction and just our lives, a simple word of encouragement can do so much for so many different people. And that costs nothing, takes no skill, and we could be doing it anytime, everywhere we want and really change the world.
Yeah.
Yep. If you could turn the clock back, is there anything you'd do differently?
How many choices do I get? How many clocks do I get to turn back? Just once. If I hadn't spent all those years and all that pain, if I hadn't found Mom, would I ever be at the level of what I'll refer to my own sense of metaphysical self-actualization, right? I don't know that I ever would have gotten here emotionally, but I'd rather have my parents know, my kids know, my dad less self-actualized.
That regard
anything to have. So if I go back to the clock, get way the hell more engaged, and and it's funny, and sometimes you just is though. Like we all got something, man. I don't know. Listen, I don't remember when I started saying this. I think it was in college, and I'm pretty sure it was. I don't remember what it was, but man, life could be worse. You could have it was one of those long college, right? Back one evening in this college with me for the rest of my goddamn life. Survived all these years my wife would be running me to the hospital. How do you pick your nose? How would you blow your nose? How would you get the Q-tip in your ear? We all got something.
Do you have any advice for people over 50 who might be struggling with what to do to give their lives more meaning and purpose?
I don't know that I could be so bold as to say, do X, Y, and Z, and your life gets more meaning and purpose. I know for me that when I found something, when I started doing work that wasn't about me making money, but was about me doing good for other people, I became so much happier. And so it's finding what's your thing. And it's, while I can't be so bold as to say what gives people oomph, what I can say with confidence is if you're feeling lonely, that's something you can do about. And that's something that if you're sitting here, go outside, go for church, synagogue, mosque. I struggle with my loneliness to-do list. I'm showing it to you at the bottom. What does it say? I struggle with loneliness. I gotta call my sisters. I gotta talk to both of my sisters once a week at least. And so it's having a community. Like I said, I don't know, can't be so bold as to say, can't give you mission and purpose, but doing what helped people, help me. Yet I can say, and would be so bold as to say, if you feel lonely, there's stuff you can do. And if you don't know what to do, call a therapist. It's okay. If you were not breathing well, you'd call your doctor. If your heart wasn't doing well, you'd call your cardiologist. Medicare has a therapy benefit. Freaking use it, man. So, can I tell you a story of someone who just passed away? My dad's oldest friend in life, Ronnie. After my dad died, Ronnie became that just to talk school. And his wife, he and my mom were good friends. So I spent all these Ellis, right? Man was the king of the house. And once a year on his porch in Seattle, we'd smoke cigars. It never really dawned on me what it must be like being the wife of one of these old ornery men who make all the decisions. And we all love being around, but they're like the king of the castle, right? That old school way. So now when Ronnie passed away, I flew up there, and Debbie and I, we've been so close forever. She's like my second mom. When my mom died, she became my second mom. And I spent as much time talking with her as I did Ronnie over the years. And then after Ronnie died, we talked for about a year. And then she stopped returning my phone calls for 2 years. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then finally, after 2 years, and she's 85-ish years old. She's like, I need my second mom to call me back. It was really sad for me. And when she called me back, she said, I had no idea until after Ronnie died just how much anxiety, depression and anxiety I had, and PTSD from my childhood, and frankly, being married to Ronnie. He wasn't a lovely man. It's not easy being the wife of an old school guy, right? Loved. And I went to therapy. The last couple of years, she found a therapist. She's, as an 85-year-old woman, could have been 80, I don't know. She went to therapy. She found a therapist. And I went to him for a couple of years, and took 2 years to she felt like she couldn't really call me back and be there for me until she could really be there for herself. And she all of a sudden was talking through what it was years later to now it wasn't about my emotions finding that. Her finally happy. She was happy and loved her realize herself, because her job was to self-actualize her husband. It's just a generational thing. So it's not right or wrong. These are lovely people. There's no judgment here on any of it, right? But just coming to terms with that, she didn't get until she was pretty significantly later on in life. All it took for her was to make a therapy appointment, use her Medicare benefit and make a therapy appointment, right? And now Debbie passed. As I think about her passing, that she was able to break through that, right? And ask for help and go get help. And it really is. And it's if you don't know what to do, you call a therapist. Say, can I make an appointment and come in for help?
Very good.
Talk with you.
How can people connect with you if they would like to learn more about your story or to take advantage of some of your wisdom?
They can connect with me on our website, simplementalhealth.com. You can email me at adamn@simplementalhealth. We have a YouTube channel, Simple Mental Health, and LinkedIn and Facebook. We put a lot of videos. I have a book on Amazon or wherever you buy books. Yeah, it's Simple Mental Health. I wrote a leadership book. So it's blissfully short, but it's a story of my experiences as well. What are the signs and symptoms? How do you engage thought?
We will be certain to link to that in the show and sharing your story. Mental health is no different than physical health. So it can make a big difference in our lives. Adam Nemer shares an incredible message today, especially for those of us who grew up in a generation where mental health struggles were rarely discussed openly. What stood out most to me was Adam's reminder that mental health is really no different than physical health. If something feels wrong, it's okay to ask for help. In fact, maybe one of the bravest things a person can do. I also appreciated his thoughts about loneliness and connection later in life. Adam emphasized that people over 50 quietly struggle with isolation, caregiver stress, and emotional exhaustion. But those challenges do not have to be faced alone. Today, Adam finds meaning and purpose by helping other people recognize the signs of mental health struggles, encouraging honest conversations, and creating healthier workplace cultures through his organization, Simple Mental Health. As he said during our conversation, he has never worked harder, made less money, or been happier because he finally feels aligned with the work he was meant to do. If you'd like to learn more about Adam, his speaking programs, or his book, Simple Mental Health, visit simplementalhealth.com. You can also connect with Adam on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook by looking for Simple Mental Health. And if today's episode encouraged you, please share it with someone else who may benefit from hearing this important conversation. If you'd like to start living a more meaningful life, I encourage you to download our free guide to finding purpose, which is available at www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thank you for listening, and if you like the show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.